The nation's longest-running traveling celebration of traditional arts, the National Folk Festival comes to downtown Jackson for the first time, November 7th through the 9th. A fun-filled weekend for the entire family, exploring roots, richness, and variety of American culture. Non-stop music and dance, folk life demonstrations, hands-on children's activities, signature Southern foods, crafts, and more showcasing the best of America, the best of Mississippi, all free. We'll see you in November. More at nationalfolkfestival.com.
Everlasting, the Legacy Podcast, is the official companion podcast to the upcoming MPB original documentary, focusing on the life of Medgar Evers. The companion podcast, hosted by me, Rita Brent, will feature in-depth conversations, extended interviews, and exclusive archive footage not shown in the documentary. Everlasting, the Legacy Podcast, video and audio episodes premiere September 18th. Find it on mpbonline.org or wherever you get your podcasts. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Good morning. Welcome to Deep South Dining right here on MPB Think Radio. Malcolm White with Carol Palmer, and we are delighted to have you join us this morning.
Malcolm, I am delighted to see you, but have been smiling all the way on my 45-minute drive in thinking about our guest.
Yeah, this is a coffee shop.
It is a coffee shop, and we've kind of been visioning these two coming in.
Mm-hmm. Right. We've got John Lester of Duggan Seafood and Rick Cleveland from Mississippi Today and Crooked Letter Sports. I guess that's the name of the blog, the podcast that you and your son Tyler have.
But we have Rick here because he's also one of our favorite cooks.
He is. And his brother, Bobby, was an even better cook, as was the case in my family, where my brother Hal was the better cook.
And we are particularly missing Bobby today. We talk about him on the radio from time, just things are always coming up.
It's true, because he was a excellent cook, a great friend, and quite a standout in our community. He gave a lot, and today is his birthday, right, Ricky?
He came into this world 71 years ago today, and my world changed forever.
Can only imagine. To commemorate Bobby's birthday, we got a little surprise for you. Let her roll, Marissa.
Bobby, over the break, you told us about another dish. Share that with us.
Oh, the venison.
Yeah.
After I've got to be an outdoor writer in Jackson and started deer hunting and getting a few deer before Thanksgiving every year, my mother fell in love with a dish that we cook that I came up with. It's just venison, tender. It's backstrap loin, and you take it and you cut it into steaks that are about 6 inches long and about 1.5 inches square. It's just almost like a finger. I don't know what you'd call it, but and you just season it a little. We marinated a little bit in red wine, but just I don't know why. That didn't need it.
Why not?
It really didn't need it. And then cook it really quick on a hot fire on all four sides. But we would rub it in Jezebel sauce.
Mm. Oh my goodness!
And anything
which is
apple jelly, pineapple jelly,
preserves,
horseradish,
pineapple preserves, horseradish, dry mustard, and cracked black pepper. And we make it every year. I usually make it last weekend before Thanksgiving, and it'll last you all the way through Christmas. So we'll get 3 or 4 meals. It's great with lamb. It's really good with venison. And if you rub that on the outside of the steaks along with whatever your rub is, dry rub, it forms a really nice glaze that gives you a little crunchiness to the outside, and you cook it to a rare, no more than medium rare stage, about 100 and pull it at like 126 degrees, and they'll cook all the way up to whatever, they'll cook on up to 130. Mm-hmm. But, and then you serve it with, you reduce the Jezebel, some of the Jezebel till it's a liquid state, so you can drizzle it over the venison at the table. And it's so tender, and it tastes better than a filet mignon.
That's the late, great Bobby Cleveland here on his birthday. And, Rick, we're glad that you were here on this special day.
And just another mention of Bobby for a lot of our listeners who may not know that he was a great outdoorsman and was actually outdoor editor for the Clarion Ledger, wrote for many magazines, but there was nothing like eating wild game cooked and caught by Bobby Cleveland. And recently I had some bass ceviche. And it was Bobby's recipe. It was Bobby's recipe.
Yeah, he knew what to do. He knew how to kill it, and he knew how to grill it.
Yeah, kill it and grill it.
And yeah, he's, not a day goes by that I don't want to call him and tell him about or ask him something about cooking. Malcolm and I were so fortunate because we both we had brothers. Mine was younger, his was a little bit older, but that we played with, worked with, cooked with, ate with.
We're best friends with.
Best friends, yeah.
That doesn't always happen. John, you got siblings that you can relate
I know
to this?
one of his siblings. I
I
know
do.
his.
I had two older brothers. The middle brother, Bob, is gone, but my older brother, Bill, lives up in the Delta, lives on Dockery Plantation.
Yes, he does.
And retired from the
Art
Delta
department,
State
yeah.
Art Department. He was head for the last few years. And,
He is one of my favorite Mississippi artists.
Yeah.
I have a painting of his in my home that I love so much.
And he does some children's books, or some books, too. And he'll do the original artwork in there and do the binding and everything.
Huh. And do like a limited edition? Is that how he does? Do you know how many he publishes? How many?
I couldn't tell you that right off the bat.
It's interesting.
I don't know that he's done
concept.
any second editions either, but he does a limited edition, does it all himself.
But what an artistic guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he does make a mean duck call,
He does.
too. And actually, this week, this is just so ironic to see you. His daughter did a wood piece for me many years ago. It's like formed strips of wood, and I had it in my loft in Greenwood. And it's a beautiful piece of art.
Yes.
But the building just sold, and I'm going up in 2 weeks to get it.
No
oh, really?
doubt.
You still have your
Is her
bunch
name
of...
Mackenzie?
Yeah. Yes.
McLeod.
McLeod.
No,
I'm sorry.
McLeod. McLeod Lester.
Yeah.
And you still have a bunch of stuff in Greenwood?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Oh, my goodness.
And this piece is attached to the wall. And while somebody, was being rented out, I didn't want to take it. But
Did you find it? For a little while, McLeod and Bill were doing a little show at some gallery right there on Main Street, and I'd seen some pieces in there. But yes, it was formed wood, like steamed and bent. And
yes,
those
this
kind of
is
things.
this is what she did. And no, but I bought this, I believe, when she was still in college or just getting out of college, and it was a commission. I was so impressed, just blown away by her talent, and I commissioned this piece when I redid and did this loft.
And Bill has another life too. Since he's right there on Dockery Farms, he bought his land from Miss Dockery. He is the executive director over the foundation, and so there's events there, and it's a Ground Zero Blues site. So people from all over the world, Germany especially, and places, will come by and contact him, and he'll give them
The tour,
the tour and the walk around, and he does a lot. He knows more about Mississippi blues than you would think, than most people do, because he's so immersed in it.
Right.
Well, he has to
lives
be
there.
because it's really considered. Some people call
The
it's
sacred ground.
the
Right.
birthplace of the blues, because when it was a working plantation,
Right.
Charlie Patton worked there, other blues players, and actually a train
came through there.
right into
Exactly.
to Dockery. There were 2,500 to 3,000 people that lived and worked there. Now that same land is farmed by a handful because they use satellites and
Right.
and all this stuff. But that's kind of how the blues got out of there. They
It
would
is.
take that train
And go south. So then some people say the actual crossroads. There'll be people that they know. It's
You're about to
Clarksdale.
stir it up.
Yeah, you're going to stir it up, John. The
Go
phones are
ahead.
going to
Go
start
ahead.
ringing.
But some people say the actual crossroads were right across from Dockery Farms. There's a gravel road, old dirt road down there, and I think there was an old church down that way.
Yeah, but Robert Johnson played there, Charlie Patton, lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
But let's talk food.
All right,
today.
yeah. So
well,
today-
blues and food.
Yeah, I mean, to us, it's all the same. It's culture.
Yes.
It's all culture.
Food. blues are food for the soul.
Yeah, you got it.
So today's another coffee shop episode here on Deep South Dining. Our guests are John Lester from Duggan Seafood and Rick Cleveland from Mississippi Today. Rick is Mississippi sports writer, our most famous and renowned sports writer. Long time with the Clarion Ledger and now with Mississippi Today. And again,
Got a few books under his belt.
A few books. Rick and I did a two-man show over at the Max here recently about the intersection of sports and arts and culture and creativity. That was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I don't think a lot of people realize, how many people have doubled up.
Right. We went over there with about 20 examples and left with about 26 because people in the audience kept suggesting people that we had forgotten to highlight.
Well, throw out a few for us.
Yeah, Country Charlie Pride.
Charlie Pride.
Baseball.
There you go.
They played minor league baseball and actually almost made the major leagues. And even way after the baseball, he would still go to spring training every year with the Texas Rangers and throw batting practice and hit. Yeah. I mean,
Tricia Walker.
Basketball.
And
Colin.
I believe she ran track and maybe played tennis.
Wait, who ran track?
I think Tricia Walker did.
Oh yeah, she was distance, I think.
Yeah.
But the Jim Weatherly's one of my favorite
football.
Ole Miss quarterback, and all he wrote was Midnight Train to Georgia.
And that's all he had to do.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, and actually, Carol, the name of that song originally was Midnight Plane to Houston.
Wow.
But when
he sold it to Gladys Knight, she said, Jim, the plane thing doesn't work for me. We take trains, not planes, and so it became Midnight Train to Georgia.
And that could have been the difference between a little million and big millions.
Well, as he said, when Gladys Knight recorded it, was the difference between a few bucks and millions of bucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She hit the jackpot with it.
So, John, let's talk a little bit about seafood, as that is your trade. I'm curious about what the market is like now. How many years have you been doing this seafood?
I think we've been doing it like 18 years.
18 years. You
Doogie's been
took
going.
over Doogie's place in 2 locations now. Is that right?
One in Gluckstadt and the one at DeVille. It's been there. The one at DeVille's been there like 53 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's go back in time and tell our listeners about Doogie and Duggan's and the meaning of that. He got a truck. He
started out in Baton Rouge. They were actually selling, I think, out of their end of their driveway at the road in Greenville Springs, outside of Baton Rouge. And then I think it was just Laura that was doing it. And then it started doing pretty good. And I think they moved up to somewhere south of Jackson, down 55 way, and did it for a little bit.
Like a pickup truck.
Mm-hmm. So out of a pickup. And then Doogie got involved and got a camper built for the back of the truck.
And it was just a shell. I mean, it was nothing fancy.
Nothing in there. And he also built a big tank that was insulated that you could do the shrimp in. It was stainless steel. And then there were some coolers in there for later on for fish and shrimp. Crab meat and oysters, But then they finally moved up into the Jackson area, and they were down in front of the old Howard Brothers, next to the Kroger on I-55 North, and sold shrimp only. And he was staying across the street in that motel. I think it was Days Inn back then, from where we are now. And he was trying to figure out in the early days how to get over there. And he came in and pulled into Ville Plaza trying to turn around. And about 5 people pulled up and stopped him. And one of them was, what was the real estate mogul guy that owned it and ran it for a long time?
Maurice Joseph.
Maurice, that sure was. And he was one of them. And he talked him into staying, and Doogie realized that, hey, this is a happening intersection, a kind of central part of North Jackson, and has been there ever since.
Did you know that about Maurice Joseph Mel?
Well, I knew he owned that space because his daughter had that clothing store, Black and White, there.
I never knew that, but it's just a great time for us to remember Maurice Joseph was a visionary.
Oh, he was.
Back in the 50s, he saw what the future could be, and that sounds just like him because he was always like, when I moved the Everyday Gourmet out to Pear Orchard, he was going, bad move, Carol.
Yeah.
He said, you need rooftops. Got to have more rooftops.
I served on some committees with him back in the day, and I never will forget what he told me. He said, Malcolm, you know what an expert is? I said, no. He said, it's a guy from out of town with a briefcase. He said, you need to be an expert on something.
But, back in that time, there were several leaders around the Jackson area that really helped things grow and helped businesses start and spring up and kind of backed people and helped them. There were several of them. Gus
Primos
was one. Was it Mr. Pooley? There was
Seymour Pooley, Palm Bridges, lots of those guys.
There was a lot of those
we
guys.
owe a lot to.
Yes. And,
so Doogie turned the corner, parked his truck, had a scale hanging from the top of the truck.
Yeah.
And he had his wife, Laura, he called Sweetie. Sweetie sat in the truck and measured your shrimp, and people would line up and come from all over, from North Mississippi down to get the shrimp.
Nowadays, they come from northern Louisiana, North Mississippi, Alabama, all around
to shop with you.
And especially since we're kind of a medical destination. A lot of people, I'm sure the doctors used to wonder why on Thursday and Friday they had so many dang appointments, but people would come in and go, hey, we want to go get doctor's appointment and go see seafood. Yeah.
I like it. All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more of our coffee shop today with John Lester and Rick Cleveland. But before we break, we got a couple of emails this past week, Carol. I want to share them with you and with our listeners. From Carlisle Wood. She wrote, just listen to yesterday's show and have a comment about cornbread discussion. The cornbread, what sort of cornmeal do you use, she asked. I use sunflower self-rising cornmeal. I'm always frustrated when I can't buy it in places like D.C. and areas like that when I visit. So thank you, Carlisle Parsons Wood, for your comment on cornbread. And one more about, I'm a Cincinnati native, writes Marcia Landon. Hot slaw is a simple recipe. You shred the cabbage, add a bit of bacon grease, vinegar, sugar, and crispy bacon bits.
Now that sounds fine, Mal.
Heat up everything except the cabbage. When it's hot, you pour it over the cabbage, and you have hot slaw, probably a German origin, she writes. Also, she said, I'd like to make a comment about the Cincinnati chili that y'all discussed. You should not expect it to be like other American chilies. It's got a taste closer to Greek food with cinnamon, allspice, and some other spices. Plus, it has chili powder, and there is no sugar. The sweetness that you discussed and talked about is probably from the tomato paste, but it's not overwhelming. It's just a curious taste to people unfamiliar with and expecting more typical chili taste. Not for everyone, but it is a great local cuisine. And it's always an adventure. Thank you, Marcia, for writing in.
Yeah, and
those two comments.
On Carlisle Wood's comments about cornmeal, if any of our listeners have a favorite cornmeal, my favorite is just whatever I grab off the shelf. I don't know how you guys feel, but
I would agree with that.
Yeah, let's hear from some people if they've got a special.
We'll be right back after this break. If you'd like to join the conversation, ask a question of John Lester or Rick Cleveland. The number is 1-877-672-7464. It's toll free. Or you can shoot us an email, as the listeners we just shared with you did. Just send it to food@mpbonline.org. More Deep South Dining in just a few minutes.
The
Support for MPB comes from Circle Hook Distilling, Mississippi's rum distillery, offering original, silver, and agricole-style rums along with new Distiller's Reserve, each crafted with no added sugar, coloring, or other additives in an all-copper still. More at circlehookedistilling.com.
Non-stop music and dance.
If you missed one of our local shows this week, tune in to MPB Think Radio on the weekends for encores of some of your favorites. Catch the replay of Creature Comforts at 6 a.m. on Saturday or Southern Remedy at 6 on Sunday. And tune in to the encore of Deep South
Arts
Dining.
and Entertainment Experience in Meridian. We believe in the power of the arts, storytelling, and education, just like Mississippi Public Broadcasting. MPB connects communities across the state with quality programs that inform, inspire, and engage. Their audience is loyal and appreciative of businesses that support public broadcasting, which makes underwriting on MPB a smart investment. Join us in supporting MPB. Learn more at mpbfoundation.org.
Everlasting, the Legacy Podcast, is the official companion podcast to the upcoming MPB original documentary, focusing on the life of Medgar Evers. The companion podcast, hosted by me, Rita Brent, will feature in-depth conversations, extended interviews, and exclusive archive footage not shown in the documentary. Everlasting, the Legacy Podcast, video and audio episodes premiere September 18th. Find it on mpbonline.org or wherever you get your podcasts. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Welcome back to Deep South Dining here on MPB Think Radio. Malcolm White, Carol Palmer with our special guest today, John Lester and Rick Cleveland. This is a coffee shop edition of Deep South Dining. Carol?
Yeah, we were actually talking during the break about Joey Chestnut, the world champion eater. Our friend, hot dog eater. Our friend Hap Owen called in on July 4th to both of us to let us know that Joey had indeed won.
Reclaimed the crown.
It was his 17th. It was his 17th win. He won. It's called the Mustard Belt. And he ate how many hot dogs, Mal?
This year, 70 and a half.
Wasn't his all-time favorite, but
you know, the most interesting thing about that whole thing to me was that he had been declared ineligible for it the year before because he had promoted a meatless hot dog.
A vegan hot dog, so he was kicked out, yeah.
It's a tough world.
Sacrilegious. Yeah.
But, John, you had some good comments about this competitive eating thing.
Well, to me, what I was saying is it's just the opposite of being a foodie and enjoying what you want, what you're eating, and the ingredients in it, and the taste, and the being together at a table and sharing. So it's just, to me, I don't get it.
You're right.
There is no savoring going on.
No, it's not even really about food. It's just some sort of gorging ceremony. I don't know. But whatever. We talk about it.
Sure.
You know, Carol and I brought up hot dogs one day just sort of off the cuff, and we got about 10 phone calls. Hot dogs are beloved in this world, and I love them, and I love to cook them, and I love experimenting with my condiments.
But we learned a lot that day. Because, I mean, literally the phone started just lighting up. There are all of this hot dog equipment. Who knew? I mean, they're like special things to put it in the microwave. They're these little hot dog bondage things that you put the hot dogs in.
And that searing
and
thing.
Cook them. And there's something that makes the little spirals on them.
Yeah, strange.
You know,
Rick, you got a favorite hot dog brand you like?
The one in front of me.
Do you think most people like beef hot dogs over pork?
I do.
I do too.
But I mean, I like Nathan's. I like
Nathan's.
I like Hebrew National.
Hebrew National. There's a lot of them out. There's a lot of brands now. You know, it used to just be 2 or 3 things, and now there's
Nathan's East Coast. But East Coast, they got to have that crack, that pop when you bite into.
That's the Chicago.
That's Chicago.
But I just rediscovered hot dogs in my old age here, because growing up with a family with 6 children, we ate hot dogs all the time, and there were those red stained
Mm-hmm.
hot
Red
dogs. So
dye
I don't think I'd had any since I was about 10, and rediscovered this wonderful world. And our, great friend Dave at Flora Butcher, he carries, Wagyu hot dogs, and we keep those in our freezer because I'm married to a hot dog guy.
Hot dog eater.
Yeah, I'm a, from ballparks.
Yeah.
I've had them everywhere.
Indeed, you have.
Yeah, my favorite hot dog though is the Chicago dog.
Love it.
I love the Chicago
Okay,
dog.
tell us about it.
Well, you know what I think the secret ingredient is. I mean, you got your onions, you got your peppers, you got tomato, no ketchup,
Tomato?
Mustard.
mustard, but no tomatoes.
Yes.
And the secret ingredient is celery salt.
On
Whoa,
top.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on
they
top
dust
of the
top.
dog.
Sprinkle it over top.
But it
of
also has that tiny little pepper that's embedded in there, almost like the baby in a king cake.
I know.
And you don't know when
Really?
you're going to stumble into it, but when you do, you
know,
know it.
You know it right away. Yeah.
Who knew? I did not know that.
About the celery salt.
I didn't know about the celery salt or the embedding.
Oh yeah, the Chicago, and it has to have, as John and I were talking about, it has to have a snap.
Yep.
If there's no snap, you got the wrong
Wrong
wiener.
dog, yeah.
You got the wrong wiener.
They're good dogs.
Yeah, they are good dogs. I used to get them at Ole Miss football games, and they were so bad that you would open them up, and the red dye would be on both
Staying
sides
in
of
the
the
bread.
bun.
Well, talking about beef hot dogs, I just wanted to advise everyone that tomorrow is National Cow Day. Every food has its, and we just crack up every Monday morning figuring out what day it is. But tomorrow is the day of the cow.
We have a local guy that's got a hot dog cart. Trying to think he used to, when I worked at Oliver's, he used to deliver beer to us, and Cerami, Fred.
Cerami.
Fred Ceramic.
He had ceramics. That's a great place out there.
Yeah,
and he's got ceramics
we
now.
want to have him on the show soon.
Yeah, he's got a new place. He's in Flowood now.
Right.
And Fred sold hot dogs at the intersection of Highway 49 and Hardy Street, to pay his way through USM.
Yep.
And then came to Jackson and opened up the little place out on the reservoir, which is Shucker's now, I think.
It was.
And it was Cerami's Italian restaurant, and it was a fabulous gathering place.
I cooked next door at, what was the steak place?
The Conestoga.
Conestoga, yeah.
Now, you were at Oliver's. You just mentioned Oliver's, because this is an interesting thing to me, because you left just as I came to Oliver's. You had been, before Joey Mitchell bought it, you were...
I was there before Joey bought it. When Joey was there...
was Latham there?
Latham was he was assistant manager.
Okay, so you were there from the time they opened.
Chef Sterling was there, was one of the guys that was there for a little while.
Yeah.
It was a great place. I loved it. They had, quarter oysters in the bar.
Well, that was my creation there, the oyster bar, which I still have that oyster bar that we built and put in there.
Yeah.
But as Rubenstein said, he said, we knew something was about to change when Little Baby came to shuck oysters at the Boar's Head Pub in Oliver's. We knew that there had been a shift in the clientele.
Oliver's was a great place. To me, I always felt like it was a little before its time. A lot of folks in Jackson didn't understand it, but it was really good.
It was the first white tablecloth restaurant with a French maitre d'.
I was going to say, and I think it was the French, little deal that people were not,
And there were Tableside, Bananas Foster, Cherry's Jubilee, all went on in that place.
There were some ferns.
Yeah.
There were spider ferns.
When did that? How long has that been gone?
Well,
it had to be before '79.
No, it was still going in '70. That's when I got there.
So you managed.
I did.
And you cooked.
I cooked.
But he was leaving about the time I got there. I don't know where you went from there.
Went to Steak and Ale was opening up.
Okay.
And they needed some folks, and I can't remember who the manager was that I knew, but he said, hey, you want to come over here and do this?
Well, it stayed Oliver's until I went to George Street, and then Joey changed the concept, and he called it Beacon Street Grocery or something. He was trying to make a George Street Highland Village concept, but it never got off the ground.
Chef Sterling had worked with Joey before down in Louisiana or somewhere. Isn't that
they were
right?
friends. I don't remember. Joey
together?
came from Alexandria.
Right.
And anywho.
But it was cooked to order, no doubt, white tablecloth. We get those whole prime rib, cap bone in, out of Chicago or wherever it was, and just on and on. Live lobsters.
So you're a surf and turf guy. I mean, you've been in the fish business now for 18 years, but you can do the turf.
Yeah, when I was at Steak and Ale, the football stadium here was still jamming, and there'd be doubleheader football games, and there'd be nothing having 40, 50, 60 steaks up at one time at Steak and Ale.
Yeah, those are the days, man. SEC football in Jackson. I mean, LSU would come to town. We'd have a Zydeco band at Hallamals, and there would be a line stretched all the way down to Energy of people wanting to get in. And those double headers were just insane.
Yeah, it was the whole area was slammed.
It was fabulous.
That one got away from us, Ricky.
Yeah.
The traffic was
horrible.
It was unbelievable.
You parked 4 blocks away from anything.
Right.
I lived in Fondren, right around the corner when I first moved here, and it was with the double headers. It was crazy. Now.
Yeah, and I had a store up in the middle of it. I
Yes,
had the
you
Everyday
did.
Gourmet,
Yeah.
right there in Fondren. It was, we would just close.
I worked.
I was going to say, I'm sure you just closed.
I worked at the recovery room too for a while.
Oh, wow.
Slinging beer, and it was right across the street from me. It was no way to keep up.
That was a
y'all
joint.
Y'all are some food guys.
That was a joint.
Let's talk a little bit about fish, since we've got a fish person here.
My
and we
favorite
have somebody
Monger.
favorite fishmonger, and a man who knows his way around a piece of fish, whether it's in a coubillon, on the grill, on the stove. Rick Cleveland is a man of the fish.
Well, let me just say this. I know where to go get my fish in Jackson.
Which is part of the win.
Yeah.
When you're cooking.
Oh, the whole deal with seafood is the product. I mean, if you start with bad seafood,
you're done.
You're done.
Cooking in general is if you have quality ingredients, the less you have to do to it to make it shine.
Yeah, I started going to Duggan's to get redfish, red snapper, speckled trout, shrimp, but then I got on the salmon. And tell them how you get your salmon.
So the salmon is from Norway, and they fly it in to New Orleans. Used to be every other day. I think it's more daily nowadays. So it's a deep cold water, good salmon, a lot more nutrients in it.
The difference in that salmon and what you get, and I'm not going to mention any of the places, but your normal grocery
Did not know that.
It is just remarkable.
That John Lester is flying in Norwegian sound. Who knew?
Well, my fish guys are.
Who knew?
Who
knew?
I have flown in stuff from Hawaii when times were rough in the Gulf, but yeah, my fish guys are the ones that. And at one point, we were getting it out of Scotland, and there was a volcano, Reykjavik,
Iceland,
yeah, and the ash was blowing over, and the planes couldn't take off. But it's the same. I think it's the same people and the exact same fish, because it's, not kind of same part of the world to some degree. So.
Well, what is the state of seafood right now? Has it been a good year, or prices stable? Is product hard to get, easy to get? Is there inflation in the seafood world, or is it stabilized, or what's the deal?
Yes. No. Anyway, all the above. So as far as weather, it was real windy, a lot of stormy early on in the season as we were coming out of winter. That keeps a lot of boats out. It's dangerous. You don't catch as much. Mm-hmm. They burn a lot more diesel fuel, so they just don't go out. But that's changed. Better weather. But there's still not as many fishermen working in the Gulf as it used to be. And I think that's a culmination of years of maybe overregulation to some degree, or at least not going back and getting new data to update your management practices, if that makes sense.
Now, you're talking about the Mississippi management?
That would be federal and state, but all the coastal states kind of follow federal guidelines and implement. So not against management practices. That's got to do. I mean, that's why we have a great deer population now, is because of management practices. So, but you got to have data, new data, constantly to make the right decisions on that. But I think the world has changed. It used to be a lot more fishermen working the Gulf. There's no new licenses like for snapper. I forget how many there are, but I was just talking to my fish guy in New Orleans about this last week. And so a lot of those guys now have gotten older. You would have to buy one from somebody else.
Buy a license.
Right, that has one. And a lot of those older guys are not even doing it now. They will sub it out to somebody and let them work for them, a younger fisherman. So it's I don't know, it's a changing world, and I'm not sure where that's headed.
Well, the Mississippi legislature passed what they call seafood labeling law this past session, House Bill 602, and it went into effect on July the 1st. I'd be interested. We're going to take a break because that's what we do here. But when we come back, we're going to address the Mississippi seafood labeling law and anything else that our listeners want us to address. If you're interested in asking a question of John Lester or Rick Cleveland, it's simple to do. It's toll free. It's 1-877-672-7464. Or, like others, you can shoot us an email to food@mpbonline.org. We're going to take a short break and be right back with more Deep South Dining on MPB Think Radio.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Rush. As a blues man, I love Mississippi Public Broadcasting. If you support Mississippi music and their local programming, donate now, right now, and become a member today, not tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Doesn't matter how big or small, but we prefer big. Thank you very much.
The Measuring Show.
Since 1970, MPB has been enriching the lives of Mississippians.
Everything we do gives us the chance to grow and learn.
With your support, we are always there whenever and wherever you need us. Together through the years, together in the future. Please consider making a donation at mpbfoundation.org. MPB, your stories, our mission. The nation's longest-running traveling celebration of traditional arts, the National Folk Festival, comes to downtown Jackson for the first time, November 7th through the 9th. A fun-filled weekend for the entire family, exploring roots, richness, and variety of American culture. Non-stop music and dance, folk life demonstrations, hands-on children's activities, signature Southern foods, crafts, and more showcasing the best of America, the best of Mississippi, all free. We'll see you in November. More at nationalfolkfestival.com.
Welcome back to Deep South Dining on MPB Think Radio. Malcolm White with Carol Palmer, Rick Cleveland, and John Lester. It is another edition of The Coffee Shop where we talk talk about most anything that people want to talk about, things we think of. We've got a caller. We're going to take this call and kick off this third segment of the show. Is Teresa ready, Marissa? All right, Teresa calling.
I'm here.
Hello from Columbia. What's up?
Oh, well, I was going to tell you a little bit about the motel where Duggan stayed. It was at that time, years ago, my brother was the manager, Bill Terry, and it was the Passport Inn.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and just Bill worked very hard to get the franchise for Best Western. And the week after his death at age 52, unexpectedly, the Best Western sign went up. I don't think it stayed there very long. It was kind of downhill after that. But I wanted to let you know that. And his wife, in case you ever ran into her, Kathleen Terry, was food service director at Christ Methodist Church for a long time.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice info.
What a great piece of history.
Teresa. Thanks for
and
listening.
Doogie had a standing room, he and Laura.
It was like their own apartment.
They did. I think they had some of their own furniture or TV in there, left their clothes there, that kind of thing.
You know, John, also Doogie, I would hire him when I had the Everyday Gourmet to come teach cooking classes. And he would pull his truck up in front of the store, and all of the class would go out, and he would teach them about how to shop for seafood and what to look for. Then we'd go inside and have a class, and we'd also have a grill set up, and he would teach them how to grill. So at the end of his very long day selling food out of an unair-conditioned, the back of a truck, that was fun.
You know, later on, I would go and help Doogie do those cooking classes at Everyday Gourmet.
Hey, Malcolm, we just got a text from one of our listeners in Florida.
All right.
And this is Charlotte Duck Pelton, originally from Jackson, but lives down near the Palm Beach, Jupiter area. And she said that she is listening to the radio and smiling, and sent a picture of her personal calendar, and on it are marked National Fried Chicken Day, World Chocolate Day, in her own handwriting. She follows these things, and she leaves herself notes about, okay, I'm going to make dinner with the type of fruit that I've never prepared before. But what a great idea, keeping your own cooking calendar.
Yes.
And shout it out to our dear friend Charlotte down in Florida.
Absolutely. One of our cooking and coping friends.
Stars.
That's right, stars. And speaking of, Leanne Galt and I will be at Vicksburg on Saturday the 12th. I believe that's next Saturday. And Leanne Galt will be doing a cooking demo. I'll be interviewing her for an event called the Summer Chef Series at the Catfish Alley Museum in Vicksburg, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday the 12th. We'd love for you to join Leanne and I over there for a fun time. She's cooking catfish piquant, and she was doing
a dish by one of the Grisantes.
What is... But she's changed it. She's now making it a rice dish. It was going to be a pasta dish. But either way, it'll be delightful.
Well, because we love to showcase Two Brooks rice from Sumner.
That's right.
And Leanne, she should be. She is their promoter out there.
Every time she posts on cooking and coping, I get hungry.
I know it. I do too.
Yeah.
She posts almost every day. She is the most diligent of all of our
prolific.
Yeah, and she was one of our founders. It was actually Malcolm,
she's a co-founder.
Thomas Williams, and me that pulled that site together. We have now around 8,000 people. But let's talk a little seafood labeling. And before we wind up for the day, I want to hear what y'all are cooking fish-wise, and talk a little bit for our audience about grilling. So labeling first, what's changing?
Well, the Mississippi legislature passed a law, went in effect the 1st. And so
July?
Of July. Mm-hmm. Just went in last week. So you have to label the origin, country of origin, and that has to do with not only catching, processing. And I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's a great thing. The nuances in there are the things that bother me, because legislation is legislation. You can't cover everything. And we were just talking earlier that, like, the mahi, I get sometimes, and it's through New Orleans, but sometimes it's always out of the Gulf. Sometimes it's from local fishermen. Sometimes it's a boat that comes into like Panama or somewhere in Central America, or and so you'd have to keep an eye on your invoices and keep in touch with your fish providers to make sure of where it's coming from.
So you would just have to label it as coming?
Yes, and so on my little menu
Panama
deal, I'll put out to the side, just to make it easy for me, USA on any of it. I guess I may just go, well, I can't say Gulf because I just made the example.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's really hard to determine if it was actually caught in Mississippi waters or Louisiana waters or whatever, because it depends on where the boat's coming in. So I'll just usually say USA, and if they ask, I'll say, well, it's Gulf,
Right.
And then when the case of the salmon we were talking about, I just put Norway next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the mahi happens to come in one week that way, I'll put Panama. I will probably still buy it because I'm pretty sure that's an American company, and the boat's just coming in there. A lot of those boats stay out for weeks at a time, but they'll come in and have a truck pick up and bring it in. So.
Well, two comments about that, and one that one of the precursors, is what was done with American-raised, farm-raised catfish.
Mm-hmm.
That actually was a law that was passed in Congress to help the catfish farmers in our area to distinguish between that and the basa that was coming in from Vietnam and China and Thailand, which we still get. But it was the first real labeling of catfish. And then I wanted to ask all of you, do you think the impetus for this new law was the situation at Mary Mahoney's,
yes,
where they had been selling fish from, what was it, Malcolm, 50 tons of fish from all over the world as Gulf?
Crazy.
It was some of it was tilapia.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of restaurants will
which
do
is
that.
a farm fish.
They'll have one fish, and then they label it on their menu. So, but and you can get redfish from Indonesia, Vietnam, or whatever. I've seen boxes of it on loading docks, and I assume it's the same species of redfish, but the law that you're talking about the catfish thing has helped a lot. It
Yes.
came almost too late. The industry got hurt really bad, I think.
Yeah, we lost a lot of catfish farmers.
And but now we're in the midst of them trying to do something with the shrimp situation, and the U.S. government was actually paying or helping farmers all over the world farm shrimp, and they were also letting a lot of imported shrimp come in that are not checked for safety, like we don't have the same regulations. So that's hurt the shrimpers a lot. So that kind of goes back to what y'all were asking about the condition of the Gulf, and I was saying not as many people working, is those two situations.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. So, Ricky, what have you been cooking lately? Well, I know you cook a lot.
I do. I cook just about every day.
Yeah. Tell us some of the stuff you've been churning out here lately that you want to brag about.
I was at John's,
last soft shells, right?
Last month, and he had the prettiest, plumpest soft shell crabs that I've seen, and so I not only got the crabs from John, but I also got advice on how to cook them, and he told me a trick that I had never used was the egg wash.
Mm-hmm.
Speak it.
So the egg whites, you can use whole egg, and you will have a bigger, more crust, more breading, kind of more like fried chicken.
Right. You don't want that.
But you don't want that because you don't want to lose the crab in all of this. So that's the main star. So an egg white, Duggan actually taught me this with shrimp one time. But you use an egg white and you whip it up with a fork or a whip or something in a bowl. And we're not talking peaks here. We're just talking until it's light and fluffy.
We're talking meringue.
Talking meringue, yeah. So just until it's broken down and you can use it. and you run it into that first, and then whatever breading, a little seasoned flour, and it makes it lighter and crispier.
And so I was telling John about the soft shell crab that I had down at Clancy's.
Oh, wow.
Where it's cold smoked first and then fried.
Blew my mind.
Wonder how long they smoke it.
I don't know, and I had never heard of it.
I'm
just telling you, it's the best meal I've ever had.
I've looked it up when he talked to me about that, mentioned that. So they make these little smoking machines, and they use them in a lot of restaurants now. They started out using them in bars, and it's just a little smoking machine, and you use little bitty small chips, and there's a tube that comes out.
Now this is cold smoking?
Cold smoke. There's no heat to it at all. It generates the smoke, and you can use vessels to put the food item in to where it contains the smoke and makes it thicker, heavier. So I'm sure that's
so
how they
you
do
could
it.
pick up on the smoke and the crunch and
yes.
the whole thing at once?
The whole thing.
Blew my mind. Again.
I'm available for dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's soft shell.
Have you
Well,
tried?
I haven't tried.
You don't have a cold smoker,
I don't
right?
know how to cold smoke.
Right, I wouldn't.
But John said he was going to try.
I'm going to figure. I've got it figured out. I haven't.
I'm just
ordered
talking
it
about
yet.
your soft shell.
Traditional.
Yeah, they were really, really good. I hadn't topped Clancy's yet.
Right.
Well, you're working on it. Do we have a minute to talk about grill fish?
Sure.
Tell a technique, anything our listeners can use.
Well, I would say the basics so that you don't run into problems is 2 or 3 things. Good clean grill, grates, high heat to start with, and you can oil the grates, and I would also a little olive oil or something on the fish. The other thing is know your fish, the type of fish, like a piece of mahi or amberjack or something you could probably put right on the grill.
Because it's oily.
Right. And it's got a more texture and hold together. But something lighter and smaller flake you might want to put on a pan.
All right. Great stuff. Thank you guys for being here. John Lester, Rick Cleveland. Another episode. Oh, that's good. Another episode of The Coffee Shop, and we are jacked on coffee as we speak. Deep South Dining is a production of Mississippi Public Broadcasting's Think Radio. We were produced by Marissa Vaughn for our guests, John Lester, Rick Cleveland, my co-host, Carol Palmer. I am Malcolm White. We ask that you stay tuned for Everyday Tech at 10, Southern Remedy at 11, and that you join us next Monday and every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for more Deep South Dining, heard right here on MPB Think Radio.